So the idea of the smoothing technique is just that it truly does smooth out those curves so that you're not drawn to any specific huge uptick or downtick. You're looking kind of over that long haul, okay? So that's the idea of a smoothing technique. So there's the SMA is what we are going to look at primarily in this section, and it's called the simple moving average. God bless you. So it's the average, it's the mean over a given period of time. So you'll see stuff. What we're going to look at today on Excel, we're going to do a 5-day SMA. We're going to do a 4-day SMA. They can do them for any length of time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So lagging indicators, in other words, that's using past data. And that's basically what we do when we are looking at these particular sets of data. All right, so the idea, let's go back and look at these again. If you notice on this particular graph, and like I said, you're probably going to want to label just so that you can see which is which, because it's hard on yours. If it's color coded, it's easy to see. But it's not as easy to see on yours because yours isn't in color. So the daily prices, you're going to see all of those little ups and downs and the jumps. The SMA is going to kind of smooth things out because it's looking at those averages. So we know what can happen when we are dealing with an average as opposed to the median, but we also, we have to have some type of an indicator there. So that's where the SMA comes from. All right. And we'll talk more about this here in just a second. Let's take a look here, just so that you can see how this works. And I'm going to kind of try to color code this just so that you can kind of see. So we are looking at past data, right? So it says the closing prices for 10 consecutive days for a particular stock are shown. Calculate the 5-day SMA and plot both closing prices and the averages on a graph. Okay. So for days 1 through 5, that truly means that you are looking at those particular values, and those are getting added up and divided by 5. So for that particular one, when you add all of that up, you get 176.09 divided by 5. So you find that the SMA is 3522. Okay, so that's the average of those first 5 days, right? Okay, so the next 5-day SMA that you're going to do is for days 2 to 6. So you add those up, and on that one you get 176.57 all over 5. So this can be done on the calculator, obviously, just adding all of those up and dividing by however many there are. But we're going to use the Excel and talk about how we do this on Excel just to kind of save time in terms of the process. So that's what we're going to look at on the Excel. All right, so for the next one, the next 5-day SMA is going to be days 3 through 7. So that's adding those together. And that gives us 176.59 all over 5, and it's 3532. And so then I'm going to change sides here. So 4 through 8, if we're adding those together. So add all of those up. Divide by 5. This one is 3555. And then these last two here. So for days 5 through 9, that total is 178.71. So I'm hoping you recognize and realize the advantage of using computer software for this, because the process gets a little bit tedious if you're having to do this by hand. Whereas if you can have the calculator do this work, the computer do the work for you and tell it the different formulas and stuff, it just alleviates a lot of the drudgery of it, right? Okay, all right. So what is graphed over here on this particular graph, that SMA line over here, is actually those particular prices. So that was done on a graph, on an Excel spreadsheet type thing to create that graph. Okay, so that gives us that SMA, that simple moving average. And like I said, it's to help kind of smooth out so that we're not drawn to any one specific uptick or downtick, that type of thing. Okay, so then where this comes in, how they try to use the SMAs is that they are looking for those crossovers. So they're looking longer term SMAs, shorter term SMAs. So if you notice, I put a little note here on this particular graph. You're gonna wanna maybe make a note on this one too, as to which line is which. So the blue jagged one is all of the different closing prices, right? And then we have a slower moving average and then a faster moving average. So if you notice that light orange, I color coded that light orange for you guys, that's a 7-day simple moving average, and then a 21-day simple moving average. And so you compare on these different days. You're comparing a slower moving and a faster moving interval. And then what you are looking for is where there's going to be a crossover. In other words, where you see a change from the one being lower. So the 7-day stays low, but then all of a sudden, if you notice, I drew an arrow here at that day 27, it shifts, and that 7-day switches up. And I didn't finish. I started to color code this, and I didn't finish doing that. So where these two cross, and the one goes higher than the other, that's what they are looking for on those, because that could signal a time for you to possibly start to purchase stock, okay? It's showing kind of a change in the trends. So that's what they're looking for there, is those crossovers, okay? All right, some other vocabulary and other stuff. Let's talk about that, and then we'll get to the stuff on Excel. Pretty straightforward though on this, I think, hopefully, right? And you'll see how you use the Excel to do this also. I went ahead just so that I can kind of talk with you on this stuff, but let me kind of talk through this with you. So the Dow Jones, or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they follow the trading for 30 large public companies, just to kind of get a trend as well. And what we are going to look at today is what all of this stuff means when you see those tickers going across the screen or on the internet, what all of that means. So that's what we're going to look at here. So the letters that are used to identify a corporation, you guys should be familiar with that now with doing your research. They have like a stock symbol for it, right? Apple, Tesla, that type of thing. So you have to kind of learn what the different ticker symbols are for the different companies that you're interested in following, right? And then when you're looking at that ticker information, the next thing you're going to see, and I tried to color code this also, so you're going to see the ticker symbol. That's the first thing you see. And then the next thing you see is basically the volume. It's how many shares were traded. Obviously, if it's something K, it's gonna be in thousands. If it's an M, it's gonna be in millions, that type of thing. So that's the different shares that are traded in any particular transaction. That next number, so this is that light orange there, if you notice, that's the actual trading price. And then there's a directional arrow to tell us whether the price is going up, whether the price has gone up, whether it's gone down. So that's just telling us, if you notice, whether the traded price of a single share is greater than the previous days or less than the previous days. And then, so it tells us how much it goes up or down. So in this case, in this example, it went up from the closing price, and it tells you how much it went up. So it was 12 cents higher from yesterday's close. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to kind of think through all of that just to make sure you see what part is what. So ticker symbol, and then the volume, and then the price traded, and then whether the price went up or down, and by how much. Okay, so to figure out the total value of the trade, that does not include any fees. But to figure out the price of the trade, then you're just looking at how many shares you had and what that trading price was. So you guys did a little bit of that on your, should have done a little bit of that on your little project information also. Okay. Questions on any of that? I think it's pretty straightforward, but I want to make sure I'm not jumping ahead too quickly and giving you guys time to write all of that down. Okay, so let's just to go through, we're probably not going to go through all of this, but let's go through a few examples here just to kind of practice with this. Kind of becoming familiar with the ticker and what all it means. So Kevin knows General Electric has the ticker symbol GE. What can Kevin learn from the following line of symbols? Okay, so there was a trade. How many shares were traded?
12,000.
Okay, so 12,000 GE shares. Were traded at the price of $73.72 per share. God bless you. And that price, so 73.72 is 55 cents lower than the previous day's close. So the price has gone down, right? So that's kind of what I would be looking for if I'm asking you to kind of explain what what a ticker is really saying. I want you to be able to write what a ticker is going to need to say too, so that's what we're doing in this next one. And then we'll look at a couple other examples. Paid his broker and asked her to sell $3,000 of his Coca-Cola stock. Coca-Cola shares as soon as the trading price hits 57 per share. Tom knew that Coca-Cola closed at 57.25 the day before. How will his trade appear on the ticker? Okay, so Coca-Cola is the KO, and he wants to trade how many? 3,000. So 3K at, and he wants to sell at 57. Which was down 25 cents. So that's what the ticker would look like, right?
On the test, like, say I would set at 3K, I
Mhm.
don't know why I would, but if I write 3,000 and then a K, then would you change like the grade on that, or like?
Yeah, just use the letters, don't worry about that, but that's a good question. Yeah, otherwise, like, I mean, I joke about it all the time. I go bug-eyed. Everybody kind of goes bug-eyed when you're trying to read through all of those zeros.
Mhm.
So just, that's why they try to avoid that. Okay. Tony purchased 15,000 shares of Target, 54.88 per share. Trade appeared on stock ticker as, so what was the total value of her trade? Okay, so that means we're doing 15,000 times, 54.88, and that is how much? Let's see here, 823,200. What was the value of the stock on the previous day? So the previous day means we would add that 17 cents in there. So that means we would do 54.88 plus that 17 cents. So then it's $55.05. And if we do that, what is it? 825, 750, it looks like, if I did my math right. I don't know, let's just kind of talk a couple of these next questions. I'm not sure we're even gonna talk about the customized tickers, because I'm gonna make sure we have enough time. We'll probably come back to the customized tickers if we have enough time to get to that after the SMA, we'll have to see. Let's just kind of talk through these. So there's one here for Procter and Gamble, one here for Disney, one here for Kellogg. Total value for Kellogg Company shares traded. So that would mean that we're doing this, we're gonna change that 0.76K, so that's gonna be, what, 760 times the 5149, right? So if you wanna make a note about that, so that, yeah, that would be 760 times the 5149. How can that at 5149 be interpreted? That was the selling price per share. So this K, 0.76K, how is that interpreted? So you have to think about the fact that that's thousand, so move your decimal point is the main thing, right? So that's saying it's Kellogg stock that's being traded, and it would be the 766 shares. Okay, I don't wanna, I mean, I think you guys follow how to do that, so I'm not too concerned. I don't think there's really anything else. Yeah, okay, we're gonna stop there.